According to Gallup, employee engagement in the United States hit an all-time low last year, the lowest it's been in over a decade, with one of the biggest declines being people at work feeling cared for as a person. And we know it. It's good for our people, it's good for business, for us to make sure our people are heard and understood. But sometimes as leaders, we are just maxed out. We are overstimulated, we are overwhelmed, we have decision fatigue, we have listening fatigue. So, how can we listen well even when we feel this way? Today, I'm going to share 5 ways great leaders listen. Let's do it. Hey friend, welcome to the Culture Keepers podcast. My name is Kara List. I'm your leadership coach. And here on the Culture Keepers podcast, we discuss topics that empower leaders just like you to cultivate a thriving and connected workplace culture. And today we're jumping into talking about active listening. And active listening is just one way that you can help your people feel cared for. Another way that you can do that practically on a regular basis is recognition, appreciation, and sometimes that's hard to figure out how to do in a consistent way. Well, I have a guide for you. It is an ultimate meeting kickoff guide, and you definitely need to grab this so you have the practical tools to help your people feel appreciated and seen on a regular basis in a way that isn't cheesy, that doesn't feel forced. It's just part of your rhythm. I teach you exactly how to do it in this guide. So go ahead to heycaralist.com/kickoff or grab the link in the show notes. Okay, friend, I want to know if any of these sentiments resonate with you. I want to hear my team's ideas, but I also don't want to waste time hearing their ideas when I know that most of them just won't work. Or maybe you feel this one. I want to be a safe space for my people, but I don't know how to be a coach or a counselor. Or this one, I am so overwhelmed and I just don't have the capacity for any more conversations. I don't know if you feel that. I know I have felt that in the past, but there is good news. The skills of active listening do not need to add more to your plate. We're talking small shifts that make a really big difference. And it's really the difference between people feeling like you have just heard their words and people feeling like you have listened to understand. And when people feel like you understand them, that is where the trust happens. That is where trust is built. And trust fuels engagement because people feel safe. They feel cared for. So let's jump right into the 5 ways great leaders listen. The first way they listen is they listen with curiosity. Think about going to the doctor's office and you spout out all of your symptoms. You give the long list of all the symptoms. Imagine if the doctor just repeated exactly what you said back to them and then sent you on your way. You couldn't argue that they didn't hear you because they repeated everything that you said, but you will have left not feeling understood, not feeling cared for. What would you prefer? You prefer for them to listen and to grow curious. Why are you feeling this way? Answer this question for me, right? Follow-up questions, follow-up tests. You want them to be so invested in finding out what is wrong that they're willing to do the work to get curious about your symptoms instead of just hearing the words you said and repeating them right back to you. That is not a good doctor, and friends, it's also not a good leader. So how do we get more curious? It's really just as simple as asking a question, just asking one question after people share with you. So when a team member says, I'm just really frustrated by how these meetings have been going, the wrong way to answer is to say, I hear you. I bet you're frustrated. Yeah, that's what they just said. Instead, get curious. What specifically about the meeting has been the most frustrating for you right now? Just ask that question. And if you can't think of a good question right away, the best thing you can do is just to always say, tell me more. Tell me more about that, because there is always something more people have to say. And their first answer is never going to be the full story, and it's never going to be their best story. And when given another opportunity, they will always share more, and that curiosity will tell you so much. Okay, the second way great leaders listen is they listen without assumptions and without judgment. I love this analogy. I use it a lot. But imagine that there is a sphere in front of you. There is no possible way to see all sides of the sphere at the same time. You can only see the parts that you can see. The other parts are hidden. And we often, when having a conversation with someone, make an assumption that we know exactly their point of view or we know the facts. But the truth is, we don't. We can only make an assumption. And then oftentimes that assumption leads to a judgment, which then creates this emotional wall between us. So the best thing we can do is to go into every conversation listening and not assuming that we understand or know their truth, what their side of the sphere looks like. The only way we can know is to let them explain and then ask clarifying questions in response to make sure we can get the best picture possible. Once we just accept that we can't fully know ourselves, that we don't fully know ourselves, we have to do that work to investigate and hear from them. So some simple clarifying questions you could ask would be, help me understand why you're feeling this way. Or I'm missing something here. Help me see what I can't see. Or more specifically, a specific example would be, tell me what led you to make this decision. Right? We're not going to assume we know. Tell me, help me see what I can't see. Okay, the third way great leaders listen, and this one's hard for me, friend. They listen without preparing to speak. Most of us aren't really listening. We're thinking about what we're going to say next. And if you're just waiting for your turn to talk and thinking about what you're going to say, you're not listening. I mean, maybe you're better at mental multitasking than me, but I can't think of a time where I have been able to fully listen and be engaged with someone and think about what I'm going to say next. So the key to this is just patience. Simon Sinek says, just let people empty their bucket. Just let them talk until they stop talking. And what's amazing is the things that you might have missed while thinking about what you're going to say might have totally changed your plan. So let yourself truly hear everything first and then decide what you're going to say. The fourth way great leaders listen is they listen without trying to fix it. Now, this is a common pitfall for leaders, right? People come to us, they have a need, they want to talk about things, and we just want to help them. We just want to help them come up with a solution because we think we know the solution. And also, it's the quickest way, right? The quickest way is for me to just tell you how to fix this. But we know that if our team is always coming to us with the expectation that we are going to fix their problems, then we have done a terrible job at equipping them to fix their own problems. So the goal here is to listen in a way where you are prepared to help them hear themselves. And this looks like fully listening, asking some of those follow-up questions, the tell me mores, and then after that saying, this is what I hear you saying. Is this correct? And you lay it out for them. After listening to their initial comments, letting them talk some more, you just show up as a mirror. This is what I hear you saying. And often when we hear it repeated back to us, we're almost able to hear it for the first time. There are certain blind spots that get removed. And that is when real transformation happens. Real transformation doesn't happen when someone tells you what to do. It happens when you discover it yourself. And oftentimes that's enough. Sometimes people might need your advice because you may have actually been in this situation before and have something good to offer, but you just want to restrain that advice till after you've already done these things. And this really matters because some people are just needing to talk and they actually don't need you to fix it. And so by just fixing it, it feels dismissive. It also feels like you have all the answers, and that's not relatable. I just want to talk to someone who has empathy for my situation without them either having to fix it or without me feeling like no one else struggles with this. And because you don't know how your employee is coming in feeling, whether it's one of those things or not, your best choice is listening to empower instead of rescue, not to try to fix all the problems. And the last way great leaders listen is by listening in a way that doesn't make it about them. This is a common mistake. And the heart of it is empathy. But when someone tells you something and your response is, I know exactly how you feel. I have totally felt this way before. You have now made it your moment instead of their moment. And those kinds of comments don't actually really do much to contribute well to the conversation. So instead of shifting the conversation to yourself, you're going to, guess what? Ask a good question. Something like, wow, it sounds like you are really overwhelmed right now. What do you think is causing all this stress? And that's a way you can ask a question to get more information and still show empathy without it becoming about you and then just ending. There's really nowhere you can go from, I totally get it. I have totally felt like this before. And in the end, if you do have advice, we're going to go back to the last point. You're going to wait. You're going to validate first, get curious, and then ask if they would like your perspective. So friend, what we've done here in these 5 things is we have made a distinction between the act of just hearing and the art of listening to understand. And that is the distinction between not so great leaders and great leaders. So to summarize, they listen with curiosity. They listen without assumption and judgment, preparing to speak, fixing everything, or making it about themselves. This is empathetic leadership, and this is culture keeping at its finest. Okay, leader, which one of those 5 do you find to be the biggest struggle for you? Which one do you hear and you think, oh, yep, that's me. That's where I have a struggle. If that's you, then just focus on that one this week. Catch yourself and be prepared to stretch those active listening muscles. Don't forget to grab that ultimate meeting kickoff in the show notes. And friend, as always, I'm cheering you on, and I'll talk to you next time.